Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna chase you out of earth.
Crossroads 2. Cynicism and Hedonism. Antisthenes and Aristippus. The core of ancient Greek, that is, Western philosophy, begins with the crossroads. Plato founded the Academy. He spoke of the good, for instance, virtue, as in another realm, only obscurely represented in our daily world, and he spoke of a personal inner voice that would help him find the truth and beauty. Aristotle determined that things outside of one's moral purpose are indifferent to moral goodness and to one's happiness. Such things are a distraction from the pursuit of virtue and should be shunned. But some indifference, like health and means, are preferred indifference, and thus can contribute to happiness. Zeno argued that virtue itself is sufficient for happiness. Happiness does not depend, for instance, on whether one is enslaved or a master. Stoicism also argued the 3 points that we saw earlier: live for the day, good or evil is within us, as well as accepting fate. This is just a rough sketch. But is virtue itself sufficient for a happy life? And all the confusion and quotidian expectations of society, are they unimportant to us? Things we do not have to heed? From where did Zeno get the very core, the kernel of Stoicism, that all indifferents are indifferent? And are all Stoics, though few may be in a position to practice freely, devoted to the concept that virtue is sufficient for happiness? Epictetus took the position that the road to happiness lies in avoiding pain, because he did not want to say that the route to happiness is to pursue pleasure, that pleasure equates to happiness. That is a more extreme hedonist position, ameliorated by his saying, well, at least one should avoid pain. But where did the hedonist position come from? And are all Epicureans, though few may be in a position to practice freely, devoted to the concept that pleasure is equivalent to happiness? In review, the core of Western philosophical thought. The Four Schools of Athens, according to Edward Zeller, is a textbook philosophical history. All that has been presented, except for my questions, is neither controversial nor mine. All the names above the line mean the same thing. So far, the only thing that is mine is the name Crossroads. Scholars do not use that term. It is only I, David Dickerman, who applies that term, poetically perhaps, because of the way I feel regarding my heroes. It is also natural to include 2 other schools. However, what follows is my own argument, with the guidance of another hero of mine, Epictetus. It is only I who am responsible for the theory presented here, and all its implications up to and including my theory of the homogenization of man. Epictetus, Stoicism itself, and the homogenization of man will be topics for future, more in-depth videos. Let us begin. Prior to the Crossroads there was Socrates, and Socrates was a person of many greatnesses. Each of his pupils took something from him. One pupil of Socrates was Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates. From Socrates, Plato took that the truth is beyond our reach, though we must constantly seek her in a higher realm of forms. Plato had a student, Aristotle. Aristotle is a second-generation student of Socrates. and Aristotle brought the search down to earth, employing rational methods to find what is best for man is happiness or eudaimonia. Another pupil of Socrates was Aristippus. Aristippus was a student of Socrates. Aristippus took from Socrates the carefree attitude that you can go about barefoot, if you please. He noted that Socrates ignored his wife and neglected work. Aristippus thought and taught that being pleased is the most direct way to happiness. He started the Hedonism school. No pain, pleasure. According to Diogenes Laertius, Aristippus enjoyed what was before him pleasantly, and he did not toil to procure himself the enjoyment of what was not present. Aristippus was the first student of Socrates to extract money from his pupils and send the money to Socrates. Socrates was indignant. Aristippus is accused of being luxurious and effeminate. Another of Socrates' pupils was Antisthenes. Antisthenes was a student of Socrates. He taught at the Cynosarges gymnasium and distinguished himself in the Battle of Tanagra. Antisthenes took from Socrates that the cultivations of oneself and one's mind and moral character is most important, is that the rules of society are arbitrary. Antisthenes started the Cynic school of philosophy. He advised his students to become students of Socrates. Antisthenes walked 5 miles, according to Diogenes Laertius, every day from Piraeus uphill one way to Athens to visit Socrates. Diogenes Laertius reports that Antisthenes said, "I would rather go mad than feel pleasure." He said that ill repute is a good thing, and much the same as pain. He demonstrated that pain is a good thing by instancing the great Heracles and Cyrus, one Greek and one barbarian. Virtue itself is sufficient for happiness, he said, since it needed nothing else than the strength of a Socrates. Antisthenes taught Diogenes of Sinope. A later writer, Epictetus, said that Diogenes was on earth for 2 purposes, as a scout and as a messenger. As a scout, Diogenes discovered whether life poses any danger to mankind. As a messenger, he revealed to others the result of his inquiry, that there is no real danger, as good and evil are always within our power. Diogenes of Sinope taught Crates of Thebes. According to Diogenes Laertius, Crates said that what he gains from philosophy is a court of lupins and to care for no one. Yet there is clearly great irony, as he did care for others. Crates was also known as the door opener, the caller to whom all doors fly open, from his habit of entering every household and admonishing those within. Zeno of Citium, the non-Athenian, traveled from Citium in Cyprus, landing in Athens. Zeno immediately sought someone like Socrates. Crates was like Socrates. Zeno studied under Crates until he found a place in front of the painted Stoa in the Agora and formulated the Stoic doctrine. Let us review. We live in an Epicurean world, rational, agnostic, materialistic. Now we have learned two new views. Cynicism, the source of virtue or vice is in the person, not related to society. All are masters, all are slaves. Pain is the territory on which character is formed. And hedonism is the belief that pleasure is the highest good. We have shown that cynicism is the root of Stoicism, the very heart, as Antisthenes' pupils taught Zeno of Citium. Historically, Aristippus never taught Epicurus. But it is my claim that hedonism is the heart, the very core of Epicureanism. Accepting that, we must then, kicking and screaming, perhaps, circle that square and admit Epicurus into the line of descendants of Socrates. Accepting that, we must then, kicking and screaming perhaps, circle that square and admit Epicurus into the line of descendants of Socrates. Socrates would probably be indignant. I leave with one further observation, this one from the current literature, regarding our current Epicurean society. That sort of behavior is all part of the extremely online problem, where virality alchemizes everything into the 21st century version of must-see TV, bleeding it dry of the need for reverence, grief, contemplation, or any emotion that isn't some kissing cousin of an especially joyless hedonism.